Contagion is a 2011 documentary directed by prolific filmmaker Steven Soderbergh, whose other work includes Hot Guys Rob a Casino, Hot Guys Dancing, the Channing Tatum story, and I Shot This All on an iPhone, Isn't That Crazy? Oh, and some other films too. While Contagion might not be an actual documentary, it certainly feels like one, giving a very clinical and non-cinematic look at how society would react to a pandemic. A pandemic with a 20% mortality rate, not this pussy 0.2% coronavirus shit. In fact, the only thing that really takes away from the realism of this film is that Jason Bourne and Morpheus keep going for their first acting Oscar.
He did die. Right. I'm sorry, Mr. Emma.
I know this is hard to accept.
Can I go talk to her? Mr. Amoff, I'm sorry. Your wife is dead.
I love gold!
I said acting because Matt Damon won an Oscar for writing Good Will Hunting.
And the Oscar goes to Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. Yeah!
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
See, I know movies, so that's why I'm going to tell you why Contagion movie equal good movie. What makes it a good movie? Well, let's start with number 1, the plot or lack thereof. Contagion does not follow a traditional 3-act structure. It's more like a series of events that happen until the film just ends. And I'm not saying that negatively. In fact, the blunt nature of the storytelling adds to the uneasy sense of realism put on the viewers. In fact, this movie felt so authentic it became the Jaws of my childhood, except instead of being afraid of a shark, I was afraid of a deadly pathogen. And instead of not wanting to go to the beach, I didn't want to go anywhere unless it looked like Bubble Boy from the classic Jake Gyllenhaal film.
What are you? An astronaut? No way, Mom. I'm some kind of Bubble Boy.
The overarching plot of the narrative is to stop the virus, but the movie itself doesn't focus on that more than it needs to, and instead chooses to give us several different vignettes that show how civilians and scientists are coping with the pandemic. There is no clear hero, and all of these characters make questionable choices that reflect their own interests and don't reflect the writers wanting characters to do stupid shit to move the plot along.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground! You underestimate my power!
In fact, there are a lot of character decisions that grind what could have been the cinematic climax of a different movie to a halt in favor of a more grounded depiction of people in a global crisis. No individual story feels too big, and each ends in a satisfying manner without moving into overdramatic schmaltz. Number 2. Why is it so slow? Well, is the coronavirus too slow for you? Do you want thousands dying each day and rioting in the streets? If so, you may want to consult a therapist. But for Contagion, it is because it does not follow a traditional plot structure. It also does not have a popcorn gorger pace. And there are so many phone calls. I mean, oodles of phone calls. I mean, look at all these phone calls. This bloody movie even opens with a phone call. What is this, a phone advertisement?
Yeah, John Neal here. You just had sex with me in a hotel and left without saying goodbye.
There is no rising action to a climax, and there is no artificial ticking clock or deadline to build suspense. It's like watching an elderly car accident. It's slow and hard to watch, yet there's some sort of morbid entertainment in the spectacle. The movie is not exactly a fun watch, as the slow breakdown of society has an overhanging cloud of dread. The outlook of the film paints a bleak picture of how civilization would react to a pandemic, and let's just say it's not far off from reality.
Run down store aisles at full speed and then quickly start loading up.
Is anyone even working here?
Just get the cereal.
We're all gonna die, aren't we? Son of a bitch. Number 3. Likeable characters and one dumb bitch. Spoiler alert, Gwyneth Paltrow caused the apocalypse, and if we look at her goop products, I'm not sure if that is too surprising. Alright, we got the mother load. $90. Motherhood is amazing, but pregnancy is taxing. Please take all these random pills. High school jeans? My body isn't responding to diet and exercise the way it used to? Balls in the air? What? Waterproof? USB rechargeable? Stainless steel? Right. I mean, this blonde stereotype is selling vagina candles. Who would buy a vagina candle? But besides her horny, jet-lagged, plague-spreading flat ass, we have a great ensemble of characters to inhabit this world. We have a mild-mannered super dad trying to protect his daughter, seasoned CDC suit guy, Alex Jones surrogate, and some female scientists. What? All these characters have their own unique point of view on the pandemic and help flesh out the film's universe as we get to see how the rich, middle class, poor, and even boomers deal with the infection. Some not so well. I would like to highlight Jude Law's character because he might be one of the slimiest weasels in all of cinema, yet he still feels like a real person. Granted, a real dick, but still real. We also have Kate Winslet's character, who kind of just dies in the middle of the movie. She's a really likable character, and just like that, she's gone, without any sort of purpose. Kind of like how a real virus can suddenly take people we love, like famed architect Vittorio Gregati. Rest in peace, you old Italian bastard. Number 4, the score. Hey, it's like I'm Dr. Seuss. The score is by far the strongest component of the film, and it's probably my favorite soundtrack ever created. It was done by Cliff Martinez, who also made the fantastic score Drive, released the same year as Contagion. You hear that synth? Sounds like I'm about to snort a line off an 80s whore. The score just has a haunting aspect to it that really elevates what could be a sluggish, nerdy science scene into a tense thrill ride. Sort of like my last relationship. I can't believe it didn't get nominated for an Oscar that year, especially when shitty hacks like John Williams get 2 nominations in the same year. And really, The Artist? How can a silent film have music? It's silent. Number 5. Making the mundane terrifying. Steven Soderbergh has an eye for visual storytelling, and this is showcased in the beginning of the film as he perfectly staged shots to highlight everyday tasks like taking public transportation, going to work, and stalking your crush to help in building and ramping up the film's tension. Well, maybe not that last one. But in any other film, these actions probably wouldn't be regarded by the viewer. However, Contagion makes you dread even the shortest personal interaction, kind of like me normally. Just look at this montage of Buddy the Elf. If he was in the real world, he would have caught Ebola and AIDS by now. As the virus in the movie progresses, more and more normal things become horror scenes. Going to the store, driving a car, even just walking outside. If this movie doesn't have you respecting self-quarantine, then I guess you just might be a spring breaker.
If I get corona, I get corona. At the end of the day, I'm not going to let it stop me from partying. You know, we've been waiting for Miami spring break for a while. About 2 months we've had this trip planned. 2-3 months. So we're just out here having a good time. Whatever happens, happens.
Number 6. Surprise guest, famed colorist Shiv.
Hello, it is Siobhan, and I, like the rest of other people, are a fan of colors. And while watching Contagion, you can't help but notice just that, like, good old color saturation, that color palette, giving you, you know, those, like, David Fincher vibes. Am I watching Gone Girl? You know, is that the Social Network? Do I see 2 arm hammers? I don't know. But yeah, just look at that. Look at all that saturation.
That's all I have to say about that.
Number 7. A satisfying end. Another one of my favorite aspects of the movie is the ending. We get a nice scene where Matt Damon throws a prom for his daughter, I'm not afraid to admit that I might have cried when I first saw it. It's bittersweet, because sure, millions of people died. The world and the economy are in shambles, but at least this one girl gets to have her prom dance. That's not the true ending, though, as we get what could possibly be the most horrifying scene of the entire movie, where we get to see just how mundane the start of the pandemic was. All it took was one chef not washing his hands, and one dumb, blonde, skanky bitch wanting to take a picture.
Can't say that, girl, don't tell me you could say that shit. All she want is payback for the way I always play that shit.